Hello everyone, and welcome to another Bite Size. My name's Chris Smith. I'm an applications engineer with the manufacturing team here at Cadline, and in this Bite Size video, I'm going to show you 12 tips to help you improve sketching in Inventor. So let's jump into the software and we'll take a look. So here we are in the Inventor software. We're not in any environment at the moment, and the first tip I'd like to show is when we start a new part. Firstly, we have to select a sketch plane. We have to select the sketch tool, and then we need to select a sketch plane for us to start the sketching on. This is so the software knows where our first sketch is in the 3D environment. We can actually skip this step, so if I just close, and I'm going to jump into Tools, Application Options. You can also get to the options through the File menu here. And in the Parts environment, we can see Sketch on New Part Creation. So we can actually skip that first step of selecting Sketch and a sketch plane. If you find yourself sketching on the same plane every time you're starting a sketch, then this option would be very useful to you. So, sketch on XY plane, for instance. I'm going to click OK. So now when I start a new part, we'll jump straight into that sketch environment on the XY plane. So again, very useful tool for just skipping those first couple of steps there in a sketch. Going back into the application options, because there is another couple of tools that I'd like to show you in here. So first of all, in Sketch, this is standard out of the box, but you may have it unchecked. So auto project part origin on Sketch Create. So basically what that means is we see the little yellow dot here. This is the point that it's going to project. It's always going to project that origin point, that 0, 0, 0 point. Again, we need to let the software know where our sketch is in 3D space, so snapping it to that 0, 0, 0 point just helps when we are creating these parts and sketches. And just before we close out of the options, another very useful tip is in the Generals tab, we have an undo file size. So the more complex you're sketching and you're modelling as you go along, it creates this undo file size. So if you think to do the calculations to create a loft, for instance, it might take a lot of computing power. And that is part of your undo file size. So if that loft took 1,000 megabytes to calculate, then you would only be able to undo the loft. To be able to extend that, you can actually increase your undo file size. So again, if you're doing very complex surfacing or things like that, and you find your undo command will only step back a few times, you can up the size of this undo file size, and it will give you more options. It's obviously going to create a larger file, but it overacts this file as it's going through, so it just means you get more options when you want to step backwards. So that's some tools in the application options. Let's go back to Sketch. So first of all, I'm just going to start sketch line. So I've just dropped a line in there, and if I continue drawing, when I get to here, in AutoCAD there is an option to close our sketch. To create a closed profile. We have the same option in Inventor. It's just in the right-click context menu. So when we right-click, we see here we get a close option, and that will close the sketch that you were creating at the time. Another tip I'd like to show with sketch lines is just drop a line in there. If you wanted to draw an arc, we have a tool over here, and we get a few different options for sketching our arcs. You can also just click and hold using the line command, and we will sketch an arc from there. So I'm going to click and hold my left mouse button, and now depending on which direction I drag, this will be the start of the arc. So if I go up, we now see we get a centre mark, and then if I start pulling off that line, we get an arc. I'm just going to escape, and I'll get rid of that one. Let's delete that one, and we'll do it again. This time, I'll click and hold and pull it straight off the line, and then I will pull it upwards. Something else we can do as well in the line tool is if I finish sketching the line here, but I wanted to start a new sketch, rather than quitting the tool, starting the tool again, I actually have the option. Let's actually put something in, so we'll just do a quick sketch. And I actually have the option to right click and restart, and this just restarts the line tool, because again we may find that we need to just add another line in. Once again, I'm not snapped to anything, so I can restart here, no problem. But if I was snapped to the end of the line and I just wanted to start the line tool again, you can right click and select restart from the context menu. The next tool I would like to show, or next tip on tools I would like to show, is the trim tool. And we notice we get a keyboard shortcut for the trim tool, which is X. It's the letter in the parentheses. But extend, which is basically the opposite of trim, doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. If I select the trim option, you see I can trim these lines. So let's say I trim this line. If I wanted to extend the line, rather than selecting the extend tool here, I can right click and I can choose to extend or split from the same tool. So again, if I was in extend and right click, I get the trim and split options. So basically trim, extend and split are all the same tool. Effectively, you can just change them in the right click menu. So again, if I choose extend, I can extend, no problem. Again, I can extend on this other line. Something else that we have is a deferred point in this tool. So the extend and trim tool, you can see it's actually extending to a theoretical point. So where these two lines would touch, it gave me that point. We can also see it's going to where these lines would intersect. So again, I will select that. I'm going to right click and change to trim, and we see it will trim up to this line, up to this point. If I hold Control, we notice that it won't let me trim anything because I'm getting rid of that deferred point. Next, when we are drawing lines, you see it's trying to snap to some theoretical points up here. If I zoom in, you can see the projection lines coming up. I might want to start a line close to these lines, but without snapping to those points. So once again, if I hold Control, we notice that it no longer gives me points, theoretical points to snap to other than end points. Let go of Control, and we see those lines coming in. So if you want to, again, ignore those deferred points, just hold Control, and that selection option goes away. The last tip I wanted to show is something that we may all have come across when we are doing our sketches. So I've added some dimensions to this rough sketch, and what I want to do is add a dimension to this bottom line. I want to change this, but it's telling me it's a driven. I can't create it because it's a driven dimension. There's something stopping that line from changing. I'm just going to hit F8, and that's going to bring up my constraints, because what is preventing this line from changing is that these two lines are perpendicular, and that might not be my design intent. However, as you are adding dimensions, all of a sudden it just locks up and there's nothing you can do to change that. What we can do is we can delete these constraints, or the tip that I'd like to show you here is down at the bottom here. We have some sketch tools, and people tend not to use these very often. So we've got our grid snap. We can hide or show all constraints. We can change how we view our tolerances. We can slice graphic. You can turn on degrees of freedom to show if any points can still move. But for this one, I just wanted to show you this, relax mode. So selecting relax mode, let's just hide those. Selecting relax mode actually lets me move these around. So we can see now that as I pull this point around, you can see that there's constraints in magenta boxes. It's highlighted because these are the constraints that have relaxed. So once again, I'm just going to change this, and now I can add in my dimension, and it's no longer limited by the constraints. So there we go, that's a nice short little video, just some tips there in the sketching environment in Inventor. So, my name's Chris Smith. I'm an applications engineer for the manufacturing team here at Cadline. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.